All right. Hey everybody, welcome back to the complete game with Curt and Garrett Schilling. What's up, G?
What's going on, everybody?
How we doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Good, good. We're gonna get right into it. Told you guys last episode we'd be talking about the draft, which we will. But we're gonna start off. And I'm gonna defer to my compadre here. I want you to tell me, since the conversation about switching Rafael Devers to from DH to first base. I noticed and I kept noticing he's actually swinging the bat a little bit.
Well, yeah, since we talked about it last, in his last 8 games, he's 14 for 37 with 5 home runs and 16 RBIs, which was given an exclamation point today against the Orioles with a 4 for 6 performance with 2 home runs, including a grand slam, 8 RBI day.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to talk about it particularly today, though, is in between that time I was starting to see like little rumor mill message board type conversations about do the Red Sox try to move on from Rafi? And then also today, Alex Bregman left the earlier part of the doubleheader before the second game was postponed with an injury. So it does bring up a lot of questions surrounding the Red Sox right now and what they want to do moving forward. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
There's always we started, and Ben Sherrington shut this down earlier. We started hearing the Paul Skeens stuff, right? You're not good enough to have a Paul Skeens. Do you trade him? Blah, blah, blah. One of the challenges with moving on from a guy, and I don't think the Red Sox trade Devers, but the first question, I think one of the first questions to answer is obviously the trade package, but more importantly, you got to replace the player. So you're not going to trade him and get a player back of equal value because no one's going to, you might get a prospect who potentially could have equal value. Chances are you're not, but you're trading for prospects who at the end of the day are just prospects. So, I don't think they will, but they're in a little bit of a quandary now. I mean, hopefully Bregman's thing is not serious. But they called up a minor league first baseman. They've been working the waiver wire a little bit. With Cassis done for the year, and depending on Bregman's injury, now do you move him out of the DH spot to third base or to first base? Or I mean, because I would imagine, and you're almost at a point where you can't say no unless he just refuses.
But that was kind of again, there's a little bit of a language barrier with Rafi, so it gets a little mixed up in translation, but you do wonder how much of that is like I refuse versus like
I'd rather not.
I'd rather not.
Right.
I'd rather not.
Right.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, I don't know. But I know he's been raking, and they're in a division where you can't. I think you don't really have the ability to have a 500 month.
And that's kind of the other reason that I wanted to give some credence to the rumor, just because like they're in a division like the NL West where you don't have a month to take off.
Right.
Like you can't go into a traditional slump.
Right.
So also on that note, the Orioles were on the receiving end of that 19-5 beating today.
Yeah.
1-9 in their last 10 games.
Right. No, they're
just continuing what we were talking about also the other day. With
their pitching is absolutely. And today, I think it was the bullpen. I think one of the last guy in the game gave up 8 runs in the last inning. I mean, it's just, and it might have even been a position player. I'm not even sure.
In those 10 game stretch too, 3 of the games they've given up 10 or more runs. So
yeah,
it's just
their pitching is horrible, and they've had injuries. Rodriguez being hurt, and they knew when Burns walked, they were going to. There's a great example, right? You let him walk. Still got to replace him. And chances are you're not going to be replacing with an equal talent unless you hit lightning in a bottle or somebody has that magic year. Who's, that now you're saying, okay, it's almost a Moneyball approach in the sense we don't need to make up that pitcher with the 19 win guy. We need to make up his 19 wins with 5 guys. So that means instead of looking at one guy to answer the question, you're looking at 5 guys to be better. Which
I mean, they have a lineup too. They can afford to do that.
So. Well, they could, what were they? What did we say? 103 wins 2 years ago, 101, 103 wins. Right. Everybody looked at that and said, "Oh my God, this nucleus of talent with the #1 prospect and Holiday in the minor leagues
ahead of schedule."
And so that was with consistent starting pitching, which this year has been literally the exact opposite. And it's turned into a disaster. And you're almost at a point where you're out, which becomes a major, what do you do? And in a selfish for the podcast kind of way, I'm looking at all this stuff, realizing, for the White Sox, for the Rockies, maybe for the Orioles, it's always for the Orioles, but for all those bad teams in baseball, your Super Bowl's coming up, the draft is coming up. And I want to take some time to talk about. So I went through the top 50 prospects in the draft as ranked by MajorLeagueBaseball.com. And there are 17 pitchers in that top 50, including 4 or 5 of the top 10 are pitchers. I don't believe that the MajorLeagueBaseball.com rankings were done by someone with an in-depth knowledge of pitching. And I could be wrong, or someone that looks at pitching completely different than I do. But I'm watching video. The number 1 prospect, who is the number 2 prospect overall in pitching, 2 and 3 this year are pitchers, the top rank. Number 1 is a kid named Seth Hernandez, 6'4", 190 high school righty, upper 90s guy. Only 18 years old. Jamie Arnold out of Florida State at 21 years old is number 2, 6'1", 188 lefty. Both hot power arms. And then I looked at Tyson Witherspoon is 8, Kate Anderson 9, Liam Doyle is 10 out of Tennessee, with Hernandez being the only high school arm in that group of 5. And I'm watching these guys and I'm seeing there is and we've talked about it, and it's clear to me now that is pervasive amongst all of baseball, amateur and professional. This infatuation with velocity has not leaked into pitching, but it has overtaken pitching. All these guys. I didn't see a guy who wasn't a max effort thrower until I got to the guy who I'm kind of at first glance, 5 or 10 minutes of video watching. The number 11 prospect overall in the 6th ranked high school pitching prospect is a kid named Schoolcroft, who is a 18-year-old high school kid, 6'8", 229, which is it's a young Randy Johnson. But I saw a kid with mechanics, and here's I'm gonna show you guys. I figured out how to screen share here, and I want to show you guys something. My beef with this is this. If you're going to draft a pitcher and you're not going to give your coaches the freedom to coach him, teach him, and quote unquote fix him, all of the guys that are in the top prospects for the draft this year are throwers. Max velocity, max effort throwers. Good breaking balls on some of them, great breaking balls on other ones. We're talking about max effort guys, and it's a byproduct of, I would bet all these guys have been to those schools that teach you to throw harder. Because that's what we're looking at. But I want to go back, and I'm gonna screen share. And Garrett, we talked about Chase Dollander a month ago, and I told you that physically that just couldn't hold out. Well, unfortunately, he's on the DL now. He went on the DL a couple days ago. And I hope like hell that doesn't end up being something serious. I just have a trouble seeing this working its way out in any other way. And here's why, guys. I'm going to show you guys all right, Garrett, where did I do this? I'm going to show you guys some screenshots. And here's the thing. If you're not going to hold on, I'm going to pause this. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys my screen. And here's the problem. If you're going as I see it, if you're going to draft a kid, an 18, 19-year-old high school kid or a 20-year-old college kid because he has a big arm, which is fine, and that's what you do, you have to have confidence that the kid you're looking at drafting will be a different kid in the big leagues. And here's my example. If you look, this is Chase Dollander from Georgia Southern, from Tennessee, and from Colorado. And these are obviously three separate shots. And I want to show you guys. So this is Chase Dollander and his delivery at Georgia Southern. And this is the key point of this shot. So I'm going to show you this. That's at Georgia Southern. That's at Tennessee. That's in Colorado. This kid is the same mechanically, same mechanical guy.
Structure.
All of it is the same from when he was drafted a couple years ago. That to me is a crime. There's no chance that a kid finishing like this and you can watch the pitch come through, right? He's a stand-up max effort. And let me go back and show you. Watch the video. Boom, stand up straight, finish there. Watch this. Boom, stand up straight, finish there. And now he's in the big leagues. Boom, stand up. And it's almost worse in the big leagues. But that's to be expected because that's your effort level. But all three of those deliveries are max effort. I'm going to throw the ball as hard as I can deliveries. And I can't, if I'm heading my scouting department, I'm drafting pitching, I'm looking at these kids saying, okay, here's what they are, and here's what my coaching and my development program is going to make them. And that's not happening. And that's not just him. And again, that's not his fault. You have to have pitching coaches who understand and teach a level of pitching mechanically and psychologically and physically that changes. I would argue if I went back, I don't have any because I don't even know if they had video when I was in high school, but I would argue that I look absolutely nothing like I did in high school. Nothing mechanically.
Well, I think another big part of the injury epidemic that we're talking about isn't just the fact that these guys are just hurlers, is that what you're talking about is like the growth and development that you probably went through during that time.
And that
you learn to throw with that new body.
Right.
And when you don't mechanically change it all and you're still whipping it around like you're 18 spring, April fresh in October of your 5th season, that's how you end up on the IL.
And that was my next point, and a very crucial point that he just made, and it's a segue into this. So let me just note this. Of these top 17 guys, 1, 3, 6, 7, 8 of them are high school arms. I've got 5 guys checked off for their size. Schoolcroft is 6'8", 229. Riley Quick, who's the 33rd prospect, 10th ranked pitcher, is 6'6", 255. Might actually be playing football at Alabama. I don't even know. Aaron Watson, the 42nd ranked prospect, 18-year-old high school kid, is 6'5", 205. The 47th prospect, Landon Harmon, 18 years old, 6'5", 190. And the 49th prospect, Cameron Appenzeller, 18-year-old kid, is 6'6", 180. Here's what I do know for a fact. Not one of these kids, none of them, young men, sorry, from the 2nd to the 49th ranked prospect, the top 17 pitchers, not one of these guys will be the same size 2 years from now. None of them. Whether it be filling, I was 6'4", about 205, 210, graduating high school, which was 85. And then when I got to the big leagues and established myself in 92, I was 6'5", right around 235. I didn't grow much. My hands got a little bigger, maybe, but I filled out. All of these guys, you count on them filling out. Now, I mentioned, and I haven't been hands-on with any of these kids. So I haven't had a chance to talk to them, which is a crucial part of this whole process. You know, my biggest concern for a guy like Riley Quick, 6'6", 255, is maybe that's optimal weight, but you always have to watch and pay attention to weight fluctuation for the kids that are bigger, just to make sure he doesn't freely easily put on weight, or that he has the work habits to make sure to keep that off. Because that's an Alabama linebacker and not a pitcher, and it's not a bad thing. That's great. And I'm gonna be getting more into video on all these kids, but when I looked at the draft and I realized that the number one pitcher off the board, it may be Hernandez or may not, because there's a disparity between health and draft picks for high school pitchers and college pitchers. And I believe now it's 100%. It doesn't have to be that way. I mean, numbers will tell you, yeah, if you have a guy for more years, there's a better chance he's going to get hurt. So the younger you draft him, the more chance of an injury. But I don't agree with that. I think that I think there's an absolute way to teach, coach, develop from day one when you draft these kids. Hernandez may not go first just because teams are scared of high school arms at the top of the draft, which may put a guy like Jamie Arnold as the top pick. But right now, like I said, I've seen video of almost all of them. There's a couple I haven't seen, but I have seen one or two guys who literally have extend mechanics, and both of those guys were high school pitchers. The college kids are just max effort every pitch, and I'm gonna have Garrett put a link to the video. I want you to, and it's not because it's me, but I want you to watch something. There's a video of me and facing A-Rod, and I'd mentioned this before in the All-Star game. And I threw 3 fastballs. I told him I was going to throw him fastballs. I threw him fastballs and whatever. The point I want you to focus on, I want you to watch the end of my delivery. Those are 3 pitches that I threw as hard as I could possibly throw them. And look at my finish compared to what I just showed you for Chase Dollander. Look at where I am on my front foot. Look at where my front side is. Look at where my back and everything else is. And you'll see when I was reaching back to throw hard, I was actually extending and finishing. And that's what none of these kids have. And the beauty of it from a coaching perspective is these guys haven't tapped their max velocity. There's miles per hour left in the tank. And I would tell you from a command perspective, if Greg Maddux was 100 from a mechanics to command of pitches, I would tell you these kids are in the 10s or 20s with no chance to get past 50 with these mechanics. Chase Dollander might have a successful career as an above 500 pitcher in the big league. It's going to be hard in Colorado, but he will if his mechanics aren't addressed, he will never ever be as good as he can be. And I would tell you it's the same for almost all of these kids I'm seeing, these young men I'm seeing in the draft, unless you can bring them to the big leagues. And I'll go back to Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens right now, he'll command the ball to sides of the plate. He won't command the ball down in the zone consistently to both sides of the plate. The guy to watch is the guy who I believe is kind of Greg Maddux with 96 miles an hour is Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom commands his fastball in ways few other pitchers do, and he does it in the mid to upper 90s. And that's why his numbers were unlike anything we've ever seen before he got hurt. He just can't stay healthy. Might be a body thing. He's not a big kid and not a big man. But I'm hoping he is, because first of all, I love the guy. And secondly, he's so fun to watch. But so we're going to start breaking down. What I'll do is I'll start breaking down these young men for the draft, and my thoughts on them, and then I'll give you my rankings based on what I'm thinking. If I'm involved in a draft with the team, this is the order I would pick these kids in based on long-term potential and upside. So, all right. Yeah. So we're going to get to questions. We got quite a few questions.
I actually have a question that kind of goes off of that.
All right.
That I was just thinking about randomly. Because it is kind of a important thing when we talk about it all the time with every age, new age of players. It's important to have like an ego, a sense of like, I'm better than you.
Right.
I'm gonna win this, you know, especially when you're a pitcher like this, because every at bat is a duel, like a one-on-one. So, and just so you know, we've already linked the A-Rod at bat one time in these 20 podcasts. So in the spirit of stroking egos, how do you manage that as an up and coming guy? Because for most of these kids, they're the best player in their area until they're 20. And then all of a sudden there's this butterfly pressure they probably haven't had since they were a little kid to get back to, I'm better than these guys. I can do that. And there's obviously moments if you're that good through single A and double A where it's apparent. But for every one of these guys that we're talking about that is a top 50 prospect, there's going to come a wall at some point where, okay, now it's time to do what you're talking about, make progress and learn to be a pitcher, not just a thrower.
I heard it when I was younger, and it's something I've espoused. Everybody in the big leagues was the big man on campus for most of their amateur life. At some point, you get to a level of competition where everybody's as good or better than you. For most guys, it's A ball or double A or triple. They get drafted, right? For not a lot of guys, it's the big leagues. the mentality of having confidence, like you just said in that one-on-one matchup, comes from mastering A ball. When you go to double A, you're an A ball, you've had success to the point where, okay, like I need something else. I can't, this is not enough for me. You go to double A, all of a sudden, wow, that one or two guys in an A ball lineup are now 6 or 7 guys in double A lineup. You master that level. Then you go to triple A. And then when you eventually, quote unquote, master AAA, there's nothing left for you but the big. Okay, I've done, and that was my mind. My mentality was, I was left at a level long enough to kind of master it and go to the next level. You had the confidence of beating A ball, double A, triple A. I did that over 500 or 600 innings. These kids are not doing any of that. They'll go to A ball, and because he throws upper 90s and he's facing 17-year-old, 18-year-old prospects out of the Dominican or 18-year-old high school kids, that 97 still plays. Chase Dollander goes to A ball, he's facing a bunch of kids who aren't in college. And so it's, 44 innings, 77 strikeouts, 12 walks, 22 hits, because it's the Greensboro story. He's just throwing the ball and he's facing a bunch of guys who are going to chase it. The next level, they won't. And eventually the levels catch up to you. And, we talked about Mick Abel. 2 years ago, he walked 78 guys in double A. And then he had some innings in triple A. He didn't master either level. His stuff is so good and it plays well, but it's not a long-term thing. It's not going to play long. Or if it does and he stays healthy, God willing, he will never be as good as he can be. Because it was always, and it's somewhere, and that's what you and I were talking about this, somewhere the game got away from it. The game got away from, and Skeens might be a bad example because his stuff is so good, but like an able kid, why is he in the big leagues right now? Why didn't he get to master A ball and double A before triple A? I don't have a reason. There's no urgent need for him in the big leagues, right? They're doing well, they're competing. Nola goes, they've had some injuries, you can make some debates and arguments, but that's what in my mind, that's what you sign your 6-year minor league free agents for. You sign those guys to come to triple A that are 33 years old, that are 4A pitchers. They've never found consistent success in the big leagues. In AAA, they're dominant, but they can't make that. That's your guy that you call up for a couple spot starts. Again, you look at and again, I'm not rooting against these guys. I'm just talking about greatness on a level few people can understand.
It's why I call it ego. It's arrogance. It sounds bad.
No.
But growing up around it, like you were, for lack of a better term, arrogant throughout part of your career, because you had to believe, it is a level of delusion that you have to reach when you're so talented and so gifted for so long, and then all of a sudden you hit a wall.
But
you need to find a way to build back to
the
that.
Important thing is
about, like the time to get back to, okay, I am now dominating the AAA level.
The important thing is you can't be arrogant without results.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I mean.
Right. So and these guys are arrogant. And I don't know if they're arrogant, because when you're young, you're not arrogant. You might, Paul Skeens might be arrogant.
But you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
no, exactly right.
That cockiness,
but I had the
swagger,
arrogance.
What you want to call it.
Yep.
Whatever you want to call it.
But I had that based on performance. I had done things that in my mind, well, okay, I can do that.
And like you said, you had 300, 400, 500 innings
at
different levels.
I'll tell you a story.
Yep. Okay.
I get called up in '89. This is misplaced arrogance. I get called up in '89, and we're in Texas, and Harold Baines is at the plate. And Harold Baines stands from me to you from the plate. And we're about 6 feet apart. He stands at the back corner of the batter's box, left hand, big guy, big left. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm going, oh my God, dude. I just throw a fastball away. He's never seen my fastball. He's got no chance of hitting my fastball away. Not realizing that, he's a guy that's going to have 3,000 hits and he's eventually going to be a Hall of Famer. Of course he can hit the fastball. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm just going to throw this big fastball away. First pitch fastball away. It bounces off the top of the center field fence and goes into the stands for a souvenir. And I'm like, that's interesting. But that was misplaced. But then I was like, okay, maybe I don't know as much as I know.
And that's what I'm talking. Like you have those moments and you learn from that. And these guys are getting thrown to the fire right away.
They're not learning anything.
We're talking about Carson Palmquist the other day. I mean, he has gotten lit up in his last 2 starts.
Well, what was the thing I said to you about his first start? Do you remember?
No.
It was the first start in his life in my opinion, probably the first start in his entire life, he didn't strike a batter out.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And
Exactly.
and you're like, oh my God, what happened? Like, not only did they kick you around, he didn't strike anybody out. And his whole, he's a velocity guy. His whole life has been built on just throwing it by people. And that doesn't happen here. And, again, so you guys need to understand, and I know I don't need to caveat this, but I'm still going to do it. When I'm talking about these picks, these young men, and I'm saying he's better than him, or in my opinion, the levels of disparity in the talent are, it might sound like a lot, but it's not. We're talking minuscule levels of disparity at a level that, 100 people in the world can compete at. So I'm not saying guys are bad in that sense. I'm just saying I like this guy or this whatever better than, and it's talking about Palmquist and Dollander. I said a couple episodes ago about Dollander's health. It's going to be a problem. Palmquist is the same way. He's a thrower, and they're not learning anything being in Colorado. Nothing. And that's so what's going to happen in Colorado is those two guys, if they stay healthy, will end up probably developing, not being the pitchers they can be, and will become something special somewhere else if they keep this stuff, because it's just not going to play in Colorado. So, and then for you Pirate fans out there, I had a chance to run through the Pirate prospects. And I'm looking, and I grew up a Pirate fan, and that has always been my team. And I ran into Bubba Chandler, who is the Pirates' #1 prospect, and he's he's in AAA right now. And I got a chance to watch the video, and I got to tell you, so I'm going to share my screen again. Hold on one second. Let me share my screen again. I'm gonna share. This is video from MLB. This is minor league video from MLB.com. And
are you sure you can do that?
I don't know if I'm allowed to. They'll black it out if I can't.
No, they'll strike the video down.
Yeah, they'll get rid of the video. But what I wanted to do, and again, it's minor league video. I don't know. This is on the film room at MLB.com. But what I wanted to do was show you guys something as Pirate fans to be very excited about. All right. So here he is. He's in Louisville, but the delivery is, and if that's what I'm talking about when I talk about finish. Now he could definitely get some more extension, but if you look, he's throwing down through the ball, but that recoil I don't want. And you'll notice a lot of these guys, when they throw their breaking ball like this one, they'll finish and extend, because you can't throw a breaking ball down unless you get down through the ball. But look at the finish. See how he's down and through the ball right there, and you can't see his number. Now the stand up I don't like, but that's nitpicky. That's exciting. That's exciting, and then it's going to keep his breaking ball, when his breaking ball floats out right like that. But you're talking about a guy with plus stuff, and I would expect he'll be up in Pittsburgh soon. That's not going well in Pittsburgh. And I don't know how many minor league innings he has, but he's clearly handling AAA nicely. So, that to me is, and I would have to go back and look at old video to get a feel for how he's come along, but that's got to be exciting for Pittsburgh fans with Skeens up there. The problem is Sierra Jones and a couple, they built and drafted, Ben Cherington has drafted some, or given the okay to draft some big arms. And that's exciting, but there's some work that needs to be done there. So anyway, all right, there's any more questions? Do we have other questions?
Yeah, I got another question from Phil again this week.
Dr. Phil.
Kind of related to what we were just talking about a little bit. Commentators always talk about bulletin board material. Does that make a difference? I mean, the most prevalent example in my mind growing up into a sports fan, even though we weren't there yet, is there's a famous video of Belichick before the 2004 Super Bowl against the Eagles, where the Philadelphia Inquirer, I forget what's the major paper in Philly. Is that it? They had planned out the parade route already before the Super Bowl, and quite literally, Bill Belichick puts up on a projector screen bulletin board material, and the rest is history. But yeah, I would say yes. I don't know about you.
I have two thoughts on that. a lot of it has to do with the makeup of your team. But, and I also think I'm playing at the most elite level and bulletin board material, mainly you're talking about the postseason, the playoffs. I never needed both. I was always at max peak physical interest, exertion, effort, getting ready for something. There was no, I didn't need a little extra. And so, but I know guys that did. I know guys who would use it to motivate themselves. And a lot of times you'll see, there have been coaches, a lot of coaches throughout the years who have turned, their bulletin board material is them. I'm going to be such a, and in hockey, I've seen this, right? I'm going to be such an idiot or an ass to these guys that they're going to want to win despite me. They're all going to rally against me, right? There are some coaches who live doing that. And then there are, but one of the examples, everybody uses it differently. And I'm going to say it was Bryson Stott, but I don't know that it was. It might have been Trey Turner in Philadelphia a couple of years ago. Remember, he was struggling. There was a guy struggling. Trey Turner. And the fans
booing him or cheering?
They were booing the hell out of him.
Cheering him ironically.
They were booing him, and then they just decided there was like he comes to bat in the middle of a horrible slump
stretch, yeah.
And they start cheering him on like, hey, it was totally anti-Philly. He goes deep and turns his entire season around.
Yeah, that was Trey Turner.
That was very cool. But and those things, the bulletin board material stuff. Here's the way I always looked at it, and I look at it especially with young players now. I don't want to give the best players in the world extra reason to want to beat me. I don't want to give Tony Gwynn extra incentive. I don't want to give Barry Bonds extra. I don't need Aaron Judge to almost postseason focus on my at-bats against me. The game's already hard enough. And for far too often, it's given you. That's why again, being a manager these days, it's not about the X's and O's. It's about managing the people in your clubhouse and letting that clubhouse manage itself to the point where they don't create bulletin board material. And you can always find. I can remember one of my Darren Dalton lessons. We had just swept the Cardinals in Philadelphia. And it was we cleared benches with the Cardinals like 5 times in spring training. We didn't like them. They didn't like us. They were our big competition. And we had swept them. And we get into the clubhouse. And the first thing he does is he's taking his shirt off is nobody says a word. Nobody says anything to the media. Nothing. Let the score talk. Don't say anything. Nothing. We just beat them. We're moving on. Let them dwell on this. Let them talk about it, not us. And that was always the sign for me of true leadership. But bulletin board materials really well, here's the other thing, G. In today's society, there's bulletin board material everywhere. Single day.
And when you go home, it's
in
your pocket.
Podcasts.
It's in your pocket at all times.
Everywhere.
I mean, we talk about this in our family all the time. What your career would have been like if social media was a thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It would have been crazy. All right.
Do you want to guess the teammate?
Let's do guess the teammate.
All right. So just going back, we've gotten Council, Lieberthal, Greg Jeffries, Tony Womack, and I think that's it, right?
Well, Tony was the last one. No, Eisenreich was the last one.
Eisenreich was the last one. Yep. Yep. So this is guess your teammate. My dad's trying to figure out which former.
5 clues. The first clue is the most obscure, and by 5, it should be blatantly obvious.
Yep. All right. So first hint. I was drafted in the 20th round by the Yankees the year you named your first son after Lou Gehrig.
$1995, which means
nice. So he knows when I was born.
That he was probably an Arizona Diamondback teammate or a Red Sox teammate. Drafted by the Yankees in the 20th round.
These are always just impressive if you get it on this one. Like there's real no.
It's going to be a Boston Red Sox. It's going to be. I'm going to go with.
putting a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, because I'm gonna get this one. I'm gonna get this one. I'll say Mark Bellhorn.
Nope.
All right.
I have 3 World Series rings, but only one was with you as my teammate. Based off of what you had surmised already, I don't think that helps you much. We'll see that.
So was somebody that was there in 04, Adam Heisdale.
Nope. 4-time All-Star over my 13-year MLB stint. I hit 400 in one of my World Series campaigns.
Mike Lowell?
Mike Lowell. World Series MVP,
Yep.
Mike Lowell. The next thing was I am one of 4 teammates to hit back-to-back home runs against the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball. One of the coolest highlights.
Oh
ever,
my
by the
God.
way. And a part of the massive trade deal that brought Josh Beckett and Guillermo Mota to the Red Sox.
So that 4, Tech ended it. It was
JD Drew,
Manny, Lowell,
Manny,
Tech.
Lowell, Tech. Yeah, that is such an awesome, especially with the atmosphere of Fenway Park on Sunday Night Baseball.
Have you seen the highlight of the Dodgers doing it in the bottom of the 9th?
I don't think so.
Off Trevor Hoffman? It was
4 in a row?
JD Drew,
4 in a row?
4 in a row.
Actually,
Jeff
maybe
Kent.
I have now that I.
Jeff Kent,
You say-
JD Drew, catcher. I think
Johnson?
Martin,
Russell Martin?
Russell Martin, and then Marlon Anderson to win it. And then, or Garcia Parra hit one in the next inning to win it. All right, good stuff, dude.
Yeah, that's fun.
I don't think Pop will get that one. All right, guys, we'll be back Sunday. We'll start getting into these kids, young men for the draft, and talk about what I think and what I've seen. So have a great weekend, guys. Happy Memorial Week. I'm sorry. Have a great Memorial weekend, and remember what it's for.
Yep, we'll be back on Monday. Thank you.